Hey everyone, for probably our most important video I want to talk about how to develop a body claim-based paragraph. Now a claim is going to be a reason which supports your thesis. It's just a subset, right? You're going to have several reasons which will support your thesis and a claim is one of them, but all of them are called claims. We're going to switch our topic. I want to do something a little bit different here, and for this example we'll talk about legalization of marijuana for recreational use. Now, your thesis can be you're in favor of it or you're not in favor of it. For our sake, we'll say we're in favor of legalizing marijuana for recreational use for adults 21 and older. Now, once we have that established as a thesis, then we start to outline and develop our claims. I'm going to move over here to the board, and I have a list of claims that I've written in more or less outline form for you. So keeping in mind our thesis that we believe, and I'll say that this is my essay, I believe that marijuana should be legalized for adults over 21, I want to make that list of reasons, and here is that list for me, for my outline. I believe that marijuana legalization will create tax revenue which will benefit the state. I believe that specifying legal age of 21 will reduce the negative cognitive effects, because marijuana does have negative effects on developing minds. Right? I believe that marijuana is safe and only very mildly addictive. In fact, only 8% of users get addicted to it. And then finally, I'm going to say that it's less harmful than other legal drugs. So, here are concepts which I am going to build body paragraphs around. The simple idea here is that I'll take each one and develop a body paragraph or two in order to elaborately put forth my opinion. Now, this is a list of claims. In any argument, okay, I also have to look at the opposition side too. Including this would be called counter-argument. We'll talk about that in the next video, but I'm always going to be aware when creating my claims of what the opposition will say too. Hold on to that thought. Let's go back to the point of a body paragraph is going to deal with these independently, one at a time. Now, a claim is best put in a body paragraph either in the topic sentence position or in the position of the last sentence. So whatever your reasons are in support of your thesis, I want to see the claim as the first or last sentence. Doing that helps us to achieve the structural elements that we need. And let's talk about those structural elements over here. There's really two basic ways to develop a claim-based body paragraph. One way is called deduction or deductive style. The acronym is CSR. In fact, I'll write it up here in blue for you. This stands for claim, support, and reasoning. And then there is an inductive method in which the claim, as I mentioned, can be the last sentence, and we call this RSC. All of your claim-based body paragraphs, all of the paragraphs which deal with developing a claims will follow one of these two structures. In deductive, you start with the claim as a topic sentence. In inductive, you end the paragraph. This style is a little bit more difficult to write with, but still some of you might feel that it's natural. If you write inductively or you do a mixture of the two, it doesn't matter, right? The added burden with induction in having the claim in the position of the last sentence is that everything has to filter and flow into it. So you always have to keep in mind what your claim is when you're writing, because it has to flow logically into this essential point. Now, if I'm going to take the first claim on the list and say that marijuana legalization will create tax revenue, right? I build a paragraph that way. And I will write it out. Here in deductive position, or here in inductive position. Again, I try to stay argumentative. I have to stay argumentative. I say that laughingly. So I'm going to argue that marijuana legalization will create tax revenue and that will benefit the state. Right? In order to prove that marijuana should be legalized for recreational use, I've got to develop this idea. In order to develop this idea, I have my claim stated, and then I will move on to what's called my support. The support will be your ethos. That will be the facts and statistics, quotes and interviews, or ideas that you have which you're going to get from your sources. So, I, for instance, might interview somebody who's involved in our state legislature, ask them what the tax will be on marijuana and how much they expect that legalizing the drug will bring into the state's treasury. Right? I might provide statistics from the 20 or so states that have legal marijuana right now to see what they have brought in terms of taxes. I might get ideas, okay? It might be from law enforcement, it might be from politicians about ways that we can tax it to make it effective. And I might also quote or interview those people. Now, for the most part, you guys will be using quotes and evidence as ethos to support the claims. But structurally, all of those supports are going to follow your claims in deductive format and will immediately precede your claims in inductive format. But to repeat the support, okay, that evidence will always be attached to a claim paragraph. Now think about this. We can take any topic in the world, but when you're arguing, consider yourself a lawyer in a courtroom. You might state, for instance, that your client is not guilty. If you're a defense attorney, maybe your client has been accused of murder, and your thesis is that he's not guilty. Well, what's one reason that he's not guilty? Well, one reason he's not guilty would be a claim. You might say, for instance, my client wasn't there at the time of the crime and therefore could not have committed it. Okay? You state that as a claim. And then to provide evidence of that, maybe you have a video of your client going through a traffic stop, a bridge or something at the time the murder was said to have been committed, and you put that video in there to show that point. My client could not have been there at the time he was there at this traffic stop. Okay? So you're linking together your claims with your supports. Then finally, right, again, this can be done inductively or deductively, you have to provide the reasoning. Now the reasoning is going to be the analysis of how the evidence or how the supports link to the claims. Again, very important, this is where your grade is made. Your job in argument is to take whatever evidence you present and analyze it to show how it ties to the claim and how it ties to your overall thesis. To this point, you've really done nothing original, right? You've stated an opinion, I guess that's original, but you haven't shown your thinking. So this, in argumentation, is where your grade is made. This is where you create your voice. This is where you make your essay yours. This is where I, as a teacher, have fun because I get to see what you're thinking about. I want to see your intelligence, your passion, your thoughts on the world, and the reasoning is the place to do it. You do it by linking together your supports with your claims. So, if, for instance, I have the claim that marijuana legalization will bring in tax revenue that will benefit the state. Then as supports, I have data that I've gathered from, let's say, Colorado and Washington on what the tax revenue has been after legalization. I will quote where necessary, I will provide that data where necessary, and then I'm going to say in writing, looking at these statistics from Colorado and Washington show the benefit that legalization can have to a state's treasury. Not only do these legalization of marijuana bring in certain revenues which can benefit education and other public needs such as roads and bridges, but legalizing marijuana can be used for research purposes. Okay? Maybe I tie in the fact that we have extra tax revenue, and this tax revenue will allow us to do research with pharmaceutical companies to see what the palliative effects are for marijuana, right? The pain relieving effects, in other words. So all of these things will show how it will benefit the state financially and how it will benefit us all. And all of those points are put here in the reasoning. Now, again, if a claim paragraph is, let's say, 12 sentences in length, and you really don't want to go beyond 14, kind of a good guide is about 8 to 12 sentences. At least half of that is going to be reasoning. Your claim, only one sentence. Your support, only a couple of sentences. Develop your thinking as much as possible. Don't give me a long quote and then one sentence of your own thinking, or a long quote and then two sentences of your own thinking. If you have a long quote, a good rule of thumb is that your thinking will be as long in the paper as the long quote itself. You really have to push yourself to be elaborate and interpreting all the evidence you put forth and making connections for the reader. I'm going to give you some sample student essays that you can look at where people, I think, have done that well, and hopefully they'll guide you. But don't sell yourself short. Remember, this is argument. Don't make the reader do the thinking. You show all your reading or all your thinking on the page itself. Okay, I think that pretty much wraps it up for claim paragraphs. To review really quickly, many of your body paragraphs will be claim-based. Claim-based paragraphs will be inductive or deductive. Deductive is when the claim starts, inductive is when the claim ends. You can have as many supports in a paragraph as you want. Okay? It doesn't matter as long as you have all of these three elements together. Let me clarify one point here before we close too. I'm going to grab another marker. Structurally, in deduction, your claim might start the paragraph in deduction, right? Maybe you have one piece of evidence, maybe it's a statistic about revenue that you want to put in, and then a piece of reasoning. And then you have a separate piece of evidence, and then you reason it out. Or maybe you link your two supports together and reason them all together. It does not matter. You can have several supports, several pieces of reasoning, but you're only going to have one claim. The same is true in induction. You only want to have one claim per paragraph. Finally, as a reminder, no claims in the introduction. I don't want to see the reasons in support of your thesis in the introduction. I only want them developed in the body.